Rec- Hi, my name is Hannah Lum. I am the Scientific Officer for Global Food Partners. Today, I'll be talking to you about cage-free systems and their application. And I will also briefly introduce some of Global Food Partners' projects supporting cage-free egg producers in Indonesia. I will start by introducing our company, Global Food Partners, and I'll then outline the various types of cage-free systems that are available and some of the costs associated with moving to cage-free. I will also share some of the key findings of a recent research project we conducted evaluating egg producers' needs. And finally, I will talk about our key projects supporting cage-free egg producers in the region. So my talk today will be around 20 minutes. And for the remainder of the session, we will be showing one of our producer training videos on monitoring bird health and behaviour. So Global Food Partners, or GFP, is a Singapore-based multinational consultancy firm. And we are one of the only companies in the region that works on both sides of the supply chain. So on one hand, we work with food and hospitality businesses to develop and implement their cage-free egg policies. And on the other hand, we provide technical support and expertise to egg producers and other industry stakeholders to help them transition to and maintain good cage-free egg production systems. Our mission at Global Food Partners is to ensure that the industry transition to cage-free is sustainable and economically viable in the long term for everyone involved, so the food businesses and the farmers. Our team has more than 50 years of corporate and on-farm experience developing and executing animal welfare policies and production practices. And we have worked with governments and egg industries globally, including throughout Latin America, North America, Asia, and Australia. And our current focus is on Asia, and we work in 8 key countries across the region. So Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, China, Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines. So what does a cage-free system look like? In a well-managed and well-designed cage-free system, the hens are given room to move around and perform natural behaviours. So they can lay their eggs in a nest, socialise with other birds, forage and dust bathe in the litter, and find a comfortable place to rest and perch. The hens are also given enrichment or play objects so they can peck at and to help keep them active and entertained in their environment. However, cage-free does not always mean high welfare. To have a high welfare system, the hens need to have access to an enriched environment, which includes all the things I just mentioned, so litter, perches, nests, and pecking objects. But they also need to be kept at appropriate stocking densities, so given enough space to move around and be able to perform these behaviours. And it's also very important that workers are trained in cage-free production methods. And this includes learning skills in observation and really understanding the bird's behaviour. If appropriate resources are provided and the system is well maintained, some of the benefits of cage-free include the birds being able to express more normal behaviours, improved muscle and bone health, and reduce stress, which is beneficial for the bird's immune system and helps them fight off disease. So the benefits of these cage-free systems are very dependent on both the resources provided, but also the management and husbandry of the individual farm. There are different types of cage-free systems. I will outline some of the main ones in the next few slides. So single level or floor-based systems are where all the birds and the equipment are kept on one level inside the shed, which is either on or very close to the floor. So in these systems, the floor can be completely covered in litter shown in this image here on the left, or a combination of litter and raised slatted area, shown on this image on the right. And in these cases, the litter area should make up at least 1/3, if not more, of the total flooring area available to the birds. There are also multi-tier or aviary systems, and we can think of these like a multi-story house or apartment block. So the kitchen might be on one level, while the living area or bedrooms are upstairs on different levels. For the birds to move between the different levels in these aviary systems, they could potentially walk through the provision of ramps, or sometimes they might jump or fly through the help of perches that are placed throughout the system. Multi-tier systems are often used for large-scale production and are a popular choice for producers transitioning from cage to cage-free, as they maximize the use of vertical space inside the shed, which this image demonstrates. Sometimes birds in cage-free systems also have access to an area outside the shed where they go during the day. But the birds would come back into the shed to sleep, lay their eggs, and to eat and drink. And this is called a free-range system. So allowing birds access to the outside comes a little bit closer to their natural habitat, but it can also pose new threats that are not an issue in indoor systems, such as the risk of predation, exposure to disease from wild animals, and exposure to poor weather conditions. There are also systems where hens have access to a veranda, which is an enclosed covered area attached to the shed. And this veranda area generally has lots of daylight or natural light that comes in and is nearly the same temperature as the outside temperature. The floor is generally covered with litter, and water and enrichment objects are usually also provided in this area. So this covered veranda can sometimes be said to offer the best of both worlds. It provides protection from predators and harsh weather conditions, but it still provides a kind of an outdoor circumstance and opportunities for the birds to perform their normal behaviours. When selecting the most appropriate cage-free housing system, there are a number of different considerations, such as the cost and availability of the equipment, the size and location of the farm, and also personal preference. And if the eggs being produced are for a specific company or market, there may also be a requirement for a particular type of system to be used. So single level, multi-tier, free range and veranda systems can all provide a suitable environment for the hen to be both healthy and produce lots of eggs. But I think the most important thing to remember is that the system must be well designed and well managed. So we know that cage-free eggs cost more to produce than eggs from hens kept in cages. And it varies from country to country, but estimated in mature markets, I guess that cage-free production costs are often between 20 to 40% more than cage production. And in the next few slides, I'll just briefly talk about some of the key reasons for this increased cost of production. However, it's really important to note that production costs can vary significantly between individual farms, as well as between countries. One of the reasons for increased production costs is feed. So the birds simply eat more food in cage-free systems. And just like us, this is because the birds can move around more and exercise, and they use more energy and therefore eat more food and need more food to maintain production. So feed alone can represent almost 70% of production costs. Labour costs may also be higher in cage-free systems. And this is because farmers generally spend more time monitoring the birds' health and behaviour, monitoring and maintaining the environment in a good condition, and also during the nest box training period when the birds first come into lay. There may also be capital costs required to transition to cage-free systems. So some farmers may need to invest in completely new housing systems, whereas some may choose to retrofit or adapt their existing facilities. And there are a number of equipment manufacturers that can provide really great information on the associated costs and different types of housing systems available. So the pullets themselves also need to be raised in a cage-free environment if they're going to go into a cage-free laying system. And these cage-free rearing environments may also be more costly than conventional rearing in cages for the same reasons I just mentioned, feed costs, labour costs, and facilities and equipment. The good news is the cost of cage-free production should decrease over time. As farmers gain more experience in management of cage-free systems, productivity often increases and mortality rates can be managed and kept to a low level. And we have seen this happen in different places around the world, such as North America, Europe, and Latin America. And in these regions, as demand and supply has increased and farmers have gained a greater experience in cage-free production, the cost of cage-free eggs in these regions has come down. So we recently conducted a research project to better understand the challenges and the needs of egg producers in the regions in which we operate. So 224 egg producers in Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, China, Japan, and the Philippines participated in this study, which involved completing questionnaires on current and anticipated practices. So I will very briefly present some of the key results from this study. When we asked the question, do you think cage-free systems are an option in your country? We found that the majority of cage egg producers thought cage-free systems were feasible in their country, which is, a positive first step. We asked cage and cage-free producers about the reasons that some people were choosing to adopt cage-free systems in their country. And as you can see, the most common perceived reasons were for improved animal welfare and also market access. Another important result shown here is that almost all cage producers thought more support is needed to help them transition to cage-free systems than is currently available to them. And when we then asked them what type of support they think is needed, the results shown here show that the provision of training and resources and technical advice, financial help, and the provision of land and labour and infrastructure are the key areas where additional support is needed. And for egg producers who had already transitioned to cage-free systems, the majority of them also said that farmers need more support to maintain their cage-free systems, shown here in green. And when we asked cage-free producers about some of the challenges they faced in maintaining their farm, the results shown here show that the cost of production, disease risk, and management of the system overall were the main challenges that they face. We also asked producers to propose solutions to the challenges they face. And as you can see here, improving farm practices is by far and away the most frequently proposed solution. And finally, when asked about the specific on-farm challenges of maintaining a cage-free system, we can see here that the disease, litter quality, and abnormal behaviours like feather pecking and smothering were rated as the most difficult challenges to manage. So this brings me to our projects and how we at Global Food Partners support egg producers. One of our big projects is that we are establishing 2 model farms and training centres, one in China and one in Indonesia. And this is in partnership with local and international universities. These centres will provide practical training in cage-free production and management, where various industry stakeholders, including egg producers, auditors, veterinarians, and students, can come and visit and learn about best practice cage-free production. The Indonesian model farm will be located at the University of Gadjah Mada. We held a virtual signing ceremony in June to officially launch this wonderful partnership. And the housing manufacturer Vencomatic has joined our industry consortium and will provide the housing equipment for this Indonesian model farm, which will be a single tier kind of flat deck system, which will house approximately 30,000 birds, 3,000 birds. And we are adding other industry stakeholders to the consortium, including genetics company and various other companies that supply products or services such as lighting or feed or water equipment, ventilation, things like that. So we have also developed an online training course for egg producers, which will be launched shortly. This is called Cage-Free Egg Production, the Basics, and contains 22 modules covering topics from animal welfare, disease prevention, stock personship, or our attitudes towards the birds, health and behaviour, and overall shed management. It will be available on an online learning platform in a number of languages, including English, Chinese, Bahasa Indonesia, and Thai. And a free introductory course, which consists of the first 7 modules, is available now. You can scan the QR code there for more information. And we're hoping to have the full 22 module course available soon. We have also developed a 360 VR tour of a cage-free aviary system, where viewers can self-navigate through the facility, and we've included some informational hotspots in the form of photos and videos throughout the tour. And this is available now on our website. And again, if you scan the QR code, take you to this tour. Our team has also presented at a number of events this year, including an animal welfare webinar in collaboration with the University of Gadjah Mada. And more recently, just last month, we attended a hybrid online in-person focus group discussion on cage-free farming with local egg producers organised by Animal Friends Jogja. And lastly, I would just like to mention our impact incentive program for cage-free eggs. Global Food Partners is a founding member of the Impact Alliance, which is a voluntary collaboration between global sustainability programs with standards or benchmarks focused on producers at the beginning of the supply chain. So Impact Alliance members work together to define, promote, and oversee the trading of impact incentives. And GFP has developed an animal welfare benchmark. So cage-free farms that meet this benchmark criteria and are certified by a third-party cage-free standard are eligible to join this impact incentives program. And the goal of the program is to help food businesses meet their cage-free egg commitments accelerate the production of cage-free eggs in emerging markets, and provide financial incentives to producers who meet these heightened animal welfare standards. So impact incentives, really catalyzes the development of a critical supply chain of cage-free eggs in developing markets and provides a path forward to the physical sourcing and supply chain of cage-free eggs over a period of about 3 to 5 years. So thank you very much for your attention today, and please do contact us with any questions via the email address here, and I'll also put my email address in the chat. We're always happy to talk about cage-free egg production in the region, and would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to Module 5, Monitoring Bird Health and Behaviour. In this module, we outline the importance of routine inspections of birds and their environment. We also highlight some of the key areas for observations and record keeping.
All people who are responsible for animals should be aware of normal and abnormal behaviours. Normal behaviours for hens include laying eggs in nests, dust bathing, foraging, and perching. An even distribution of the flock throughout the shed, and calm behaviour. It is particularly important to monitor the birds for feather loss and for birds pecking other birds' feathers. More detail will be provided on this in another module. Hens should be checked regularly and at least once every day, and more frequently in hot or cold weather during the first few weeks after placement and when they first start to lay eggs. When doing daily inspections of the flock and the shed, try to walk slowly and try to walk in the same way each time. Remember what was discussed in the previous module on stock personship. Be calm, quiet, and consistent, so the birds are not stressed and they get used to you walking through the shed. And also remember to use all of your senses. A good technique is to walk slowly up and down the length of the shed until you have inspected the whole flock. If you only walk down the middle of the shed, you may not be able to see what is going on near the walls or in the corners. As you walk through the shed, you may notice birds moving away from you as you get closer to them. Think of this like you are entering the bird's personal space. Some individuals may be more comfortable with you being close, while others may prefer more space and will move away as you approach. Chickens have good eyesight. Their eyes are on the sides of their heads, which means there is only a small area directly behind them where they cannot see. If you pay particular attention to the bird's movements and whether they are calm or stressed, you will learn how to walk through the shed without causing fear in the birds. As you walk through the shed each day, it is important to check the following. Bird behaviour. How are the birds behaving? Are they calm? If they are aggressive or acting excitable, flighty, or fearful, this may indicate that a problem could be developing and may turn into a big problem, such as feather pecking or cannibalism. Are they active? If the birds are not moving around much, if they are standing or sitting in groups or alone, they could be sick or injured, and they may need veterinary treatment or medication. Sick birds may also have feathers ruffled and seem lethargic, where they are slow and not moving much. Are they performing normal behaviours? Are they perching and playing or pecking at the enrichment objects? Are they dust bathing and scratching in the litter? Or are they behaving abnormally? Are the birds pecking each other's feathers? Are they performing repetitive behaviours, such as pacing in one area where they walk back and forth without a purpose? Or pecking in one specific small spot over and over with no purpose? Abnormal behaviours can be caused by issues in the bird's environment, disease, or a lack of stimulation, i.e. boredom. Bird distribution. Are the birds well spread out? If the birds are standing in concentrated groups, where lots of birds are standing close to each other, this could mean that they feel cold. If they are spread out and panting, where they breathe with their beaks open and spreading their wings out, this shows that they are too hot and the environment needs to be cooled down. Monitoring the distribution of the birds is particularly important when they are young. This is because young chicks are not good at maintaining their body temperature, so they can easily become too hot or too cold. If there are certain areas of the shed that the birds are avoiding, you should investigate the reasons why. For example, the area may be too dark or too bright. There may be a water leak and the floor is wet. Any issues you find should be fixed as soon as possible. Feed and feeders. Is the feed well distributed between the feeders and easily accessible to all birds? Can each bird access the food easily, without competition from other birds? Is there a similar amount of feed in each feeder? Are the feeders at a good height so that the birds can eat standing up without stretching their necks? Are the birds eating normally? Are they eating all of the feed until the feeders are empty? Or is there plenty of feed remaining? Are the feed containers being emptied at a normal rate? Decreased feed intake can be a sign of disease, stress, or a malfunctioning of the system. Water and drinkers. Is clean drinking water freely available to all birds? Can each bird drink water without competing, pushing, or aggression with other birds? Are the drinkers at a good height so the birds can drink using normal posture? Normal posture for drinking is standing, extending the neck slightly upwards. Are lots of birds at the drinkers? This may mean that the drinker pressure is too low. Are birds drinking normally? Sudden increases or decreases in water intake can be signs of disease, stress, temperature problems, or malfunctioning of the system, such as obstructions or leakages. Physical appearance. How do the birds look? Feather condition. Look at the feather loss across the flock. Where are feathers missing? On the tail, the upper back, lower back, the neck, or the head? Feather loss on the tail, back, or rump is usually from feather pecking, where birds pull the feathers out of other birds. Loss of feathers on the head is usually from aggression, and feather loss on the neck may be either from feather pecking or from aggression. This may be determined by observing the birds for aggressive or feather pecking behaviour. How much feather loss is there? Can you see bare areas of skin? Is this similar to previous flocks? Check your records for previous flocks and whether this is the same or different at this age. Do you see birds pecking each other's feathers? Are there many birds pecking? Feather condition should be scored regularly. Feather condition and scoring will be covered in more detail in a later module on feather pecking. Are there downy or fluffy feathers on the floor? If so, it can be a good sign because the downy feathers are often eaten if the flock has issues with feather pecking. Comb damage. Look at the comb, which is the red, fleshy part on top of the bird's head. Are there injuries on many of the bird's combs? Similar to feather loss on the top of the bird's head, injuries to the comb could be caused by aggression from other birds. Beak condition. Is beak condition good? Are the birds able to eat, drink, and preen themselves properly with their beaks? We will go into more detail on what to look for when assessing beak condition in a later module. Body condition. Are the birds a good weight and size for their age? Are all of the birds roughly the same size? Or are there big differences in size between the smallest and the biggest birds? Injury and broken bones. Do you see any birds with broken bones? For example, wing, leg, or keel bone? Keel bone injuries can be caused by birds hitting hard structures in the shed, like perches, or from putting too much pressure on the keel when perching. We will go into more detail about the importance of good perch design and avoiding keel bone injuries in another module. Hens are fragile, and their bones can easily be broken. Broken bones are painful and prevent the bird from being able to perform natural behaviours, and can also cause a drop in the number of eggs and the quality of the eggs. Foot pad condition. Are the feet in good condition, and are the birds walking normally? Do you see any sores on the bottom of the bird's feet? Do the feet look swollen or inflamed? Foot problems can be a sign of damp flooring or poor perch design, which will both be covered in more detail in future modules. It can also be a sign of disease. Bird droppings. Do the droppings look normal? Solid or firm, brown in colour with a white top? Do you see any blood or mucus in the droppings? Loose, wet droppings or diarrhea can be a sign of digestive problems or disease, so you should contact a veterinarian for help in diagnosing the problem. End of part 1. Module 5. Monitoring Bird Health and Behaviour, Part 2. Temperature and air quality. What is the temperature inside the shed? Are the birds evenly distributed? Are the heating and cooling systems working normally? What's the air quality like? Is the ventilation okay? Good ventilation systems should be able to remove old air from the shed and replace it with enough fresh air to maintain good air quality and a good temperature. This can be done using mechanical, tunnel, or natural ventilation systems, depending on the location and climate of the farm. Can you smell any ammonia? It is best to keep ammonia below 15 parts per million. Ammonia can be measured with equipment such as ammonia tape or ammonia meters, and it can also be smelled in the air. If you notice a strong smell or feel your eyes watering, this is usually a sign of ammonia. Ammonia is produced by the bird's droppings and can become an issue if the litter or flooring condition is not good and ventilation is not adequate. Keeping ammonia levels low is important for your own health as well as for the birds. It can cause breathing problems and eye problems if ammonia is too high. Tell your manager or supervisor if this is a problem, as it should be fixed as soon as possible. Dust. Can you see dust in the air? Does it irritate your nose? Can you see the end of the shed? Does dust go into the air when you walk through the litter? Other gases, such as carbon dioxide, ideally, if you have the equipment, these can be measured as well. If you regularly notice any gases or dust in the shed, this is usually due to two main things: poor ventilation or poor litter condition, or both. Litter condition. Litter is the name for the material, i.e. sawdust, straw, rice hulls, that is placed on the floor of the shed. It has a number of important functions, including giving the birds material to peck, scratch, forage, and dust bathe in, providing a comfortable place to rest and sit, and absorbing the birds' droppings. What is the condition of the litter? Litter should be kept dry and friable, so when you pick it up, it should fall through your fingers in small pieces, like dry sand or dirt. Are there any areas which are damp or wet? Why is the litter wet? The litter in these areas will need to be replaced as soon as possible and action taken to prevent it becoming wet in future. Are there any areas where the litter is hard? If wet litter is not removed from the shed quickly enough, it can go hard as it starts to dry. Caked litter should be removed and replaced with fresh litter. Poor litter condition can cause health problems in yourselves as well as the birds. More information on maintaining litter will be given in another module. Egg numbers and nest box use. How many eggs were laid in the nest boxes, on the floor, and in total? If the egg numbers are lower than expected, this may indicate that there is a health or behaviour problem which should be investigated. Are the nest boxes being used? And are they in good condition? Are they a good temperature? Are they clean, dry, and comfortable? Do they provide a private, dark space for the hen to lay her egg? These conditions are all important to encourage birds to lay their eggs inside the nest instead of on the floor, and will save you time and effort collecting them off the ground. It can also improve farm profits. More details on egg production and procedures are covered in a later module. During your daily inspections, If you notice any injured, distressed, or sick birds, it is important to treat these birds immediately. If they have wounds, this can quickly escalate and get much worse in a very short amount of time. It can lead to the other birds pecking the injured bird to death. This behaviour can also spread quickly throughout the flock and cause high rates of mortality, where lots of birds can die. If birds are seen to be sick, a veterinarian should be consulted for the proper treatment. Similarly, if many birds have wounds, a veterinarian should be consulted. If you need to give the birds any medication, you should keep records of what type of medication it was, how much was given, when it was given, and for how many days. Ideally, the farm will have an area, sometimes called a hospital pen, that you can put injured and sick birds. This is to separate them from other birds. It can help the sick bird to recover and also reduce the risk of spreading disease to other birds. This area should not be far from other birds. They should still be able to see and hear the other birds. For example, having a pen for sick birds within the shed. Lastly, it is important to record everything you see on your daily inspections. At a minimum, record the number of eggs laid in the nests and on the floor. Record how the bird's feathers look, and keep health records of sick and injured birds and any treatments given. Also, record the number of dead birds and why they died if this is known. Be sure to also record anything you observe that is not normal, so you can keep track of it. To summarize, regularly observe and inspect the birds and the shed environment. This is important for bird health and welfare, as well as for egg production and the farm's profits. Walk up and down the shed in a calm, quiet, and consistent way, at least once every day, and walk the same way each day. There are many things you need to check and observe. This includes bird behaviour and their physical condition, how they are distributed around the shed, the feeders and the drinkers, feed and water intake, ventilation, the litter condition, egg production, and mortality. Also, look for any sick or injured birds and provide treatment immediately. Further information will be given on this and humane killing in later modules. It is good practice to keep records of all these routine inspections and checks. End of Module 5.
Thank you for your attention. We hope you enjoyed this module. See you next time.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's session. My name is Hannah and I also have my colleagues Dawn and Jaya with me today to answer any questions. And And I've also put my email address in the chat box if anyone wanted to get in touch with us after the session. We always love to hear from people and have a good chat about cage-free production. So I see we have one question in the Q&A box, and we have about 5 minutes until the end of the session. So if anyone else has questions, feel free to type in. So the first question we have is about free-range cage-free systems in Indonesia, and is it effective, especially in hot climates? So yeah, I guess free-range systems can be effectively managed in places like Indonesia, where it is quite tropical climates. I guess what I would say is there are a number of additional management considerations you need to think about. So for example, providing lots of shade and shelter out on the range for the birds, particularly in hot climates. So not only to protect from overhead predators, but also providing a cooler space for them to want to use the outdoor environment. And particularly maintaining the outdoor areas. So I guess in Indonesia, with the monsoon season and having a lot of rainy days over that time of the year, it might be quite difficult to maintain the outdoor environment in a good condition. You know, we want to avoid having lots of muddy areas or large puddles of water that can attract wild animals and also make the birds' feet dirty, and they track that back into the shed. And also there's added disease risks and parasites that the birds can pick up from free-range systems. So yes, I think it is doable in places like Indonesia, but what I would say is most important is focusing on making sure the indoor environment is really well maintained and meets the birds' needs. Because you know, some birds, even in a free-range system, may never actually venture outside, and particularly again, if it's raining a lot, the birds may choose to stay inside for you know, most of the day, if not all the time. So yeah, we really try and focus on the indoor environment and what's provided inside for the birds as well. So I hope that answered your question. And I'll just leave another minute or two if anyone has any additional questions to pop in the box. And I guess while we wait to see if any more questions come through, what I didn't really touch on in the presentation itself is, I guess, why are we talking about, you know, the transition to cage-free, and why is it so important now? So a number of global companies have made commitments to go and only source cage-free eggs. And that's kind of a transition period over the next 3 to 5 years. And it's not as simple, I guess, as, you know, just taking birds out of cages, putting them in a cage-free shed and job done. It really takes a lot of, as we talked about during the presentation, a lot of learning skills in the bird's behaviour and learning about these cage-free systems and how to manage them, which can be quite different to general cage production. And that all takes time, and need to develop kind of, you know, the supply chain and all the things through the system. So I think it's really important that we have these conversations now, and the global trend away from cages and towards cage-free is, you know, beneficial not only for animal welfare and to meet these commitments, but also for, you know, market access to these global commitments that are coming into play. So we have 1 more minute. I'll see if I can answer the question coming in about vaccinations. How can vaccination programs be applied at cage-free systems, and also disease management? Very good question. If I get cut off, feel free to email me and we can talk about it a bit more. But yes, vaccination is incredibly important in cage-free systems, as well as other biosecurity practices. So maintaining good hygiene, monitoring who comes and goes from the farm, and cleaning the sheds and all the equipment in between. It does become very important in cage-free systems, because you know, as the birds are moving around the shed, disease can spread if it's not controlled. So it can be done. It's just about following good practices and biosecurity, having a local poultry veterinarian that can advise you on the vaccination program is really important as well. And I think that is our time. But yes, feel free to email myself or the team at Global Food Partners with any further questions. And thank you for attending today's session.